I came home from my internship abroad to an empty garage and a "for rent" sign hanging in the window. My key didn't fit. My clothes were in trash bags on the curb. "You're an adult. Figure it out," my dad texted. I replied, "Check your mailbox next week." Then I blocked them. 19 months later, they hit 87 missed calls. My name is Max. I'm 24. The quiet oldest son who was always reliable, which in my family meant invisible until a bill showed up. I was the kid who fixed the router, drove grandma to appointments, and slid cash across the table when the electric got unexpectedly high. My younger sister, Harper, was the golden one. She had potential. I had steady hands. Same house, different rules. 3 facts about me, the kind that don't make it into group chats. I save receipts. I hate birthday songs. And I can fall asleep anywhere, even under fluorescent airport lights. I just gotten back from a 7-month internship abroad. Nothing flashy, just a logistics role in Rotterdam that paid a small stipend and taught me how to read a port schedule like sheet music. I flew home on a Tuesday because Tuesday flights are cheap. I texted mom at the layover, landing at 5:40 p.m. "Need a pickup?" She read it, didn't reply. Classic. In the taxi, I watched familiar blocks slide by. The diner with the flickering neon letter E. The basketball court with the tilted rim. The thrift store that still had mannequins from the 90s. I was excited about nothing dramatic, just my bed, my stupid pillow with a flattening memory foam, the garage where I'd left my bike hanging from hooks Dad said weren't too fancy, and leftovers I could reheat at midnight. The driver turned onto our street. I leaned forward, automatic muscle memory guiding my eyes to the driveway. The garage door was open, but it was empty. Not "we cleaned it," empty, but hollow, echoing empty. The wall where my bike had hung was just dusty outlines and 2 lonely screws. The shelves Dad swore he'd organize were gone. My toolbox, the slow, ugly orange tool chest I'd bought off Craigslist. Not there. The place looked staged for a real estate brochure. I got out with my carry-on in the tiny suitcase that had carried me through 3 countries and 5 night buses, and I walked up the walkway in that weird quiet you get on a too hot evening. There was a plastic "for rent" sign in the window I'd never seen before. The curtains behind it were different too. Cheaper, wrong color. My key didn't fit. I tried it twice. I tried it hard enough to make my knuckles go white. I laughed once because my brain needed a joke. Then I stopped laughing because on the curb by the neighbor's recycling bin were 4 black trash bags. One had split down the side. A blue shirt I knew too well. My shirt. Peeking out like it was embarrassed to be caught outside. I touched the doorknob like it might explain itself. Then I stepped back and scrolled my phone with the slow stubbornness of someone who refuses to understand a simple fact. 2 unread texts blinked up at me, both from Dad, sent while I was in the air. "You're an adult. Figure it out." We needed the space. Don't be dramatic. The air felt thick. I looked at the "for rent" sign again. At the bags on the curb with thrift store stickers on 3 of my books. At the empty garage that had been my small pride. Somewhere on the block, a dog barked like it had a schedule. A neighbor's sprinkler ticked on, slicing the heat into regular sound. For a second, I was 6 again, holding my report card in the kitchen while Mom said, "That's what you're supposed to do." And the conversation moved on. For a second, I was 19, transferring $150 to Harper at midnight because the app wouldn't let me order my textbooks unless I added the rush fee. I stood there on the sidewalk with my suitcase and a cheap airport sandwich in my backpack, and I felt something old and heavy in me turn over, like a log in a fire, finding a new surface to burn. Across the street, Mr. Patel paused with his dog. "You back, Max?" he called friendly. I opened my mouth to say yes, and what came out was, "I guess." I didn't knock. I didn't call. I slid my phone into my pocket and knelt by the trash bags, picking out what was mine, one ordinary humiliating item at a time. A t-shirt with my high school logo, my beat-up running shoes with the flap on the heel, a mug with chipped glaze that said, "World's okayest son." I put them into my suitcase, zipped it closed, and felt the zipper catch on a thread like even it had questions. Then I sat on the curb in front of a house that apparently wasn't my home anymore, and stared at the porch light I'd rewired last summer while Dad watched baseball inside and yelled, "Don't blow the breaker, genius." Somewhere between the last time the mower lines were straight and this moment right now, a decision had been made. Not by me, not with me, just about me. I watched the sun slide behind the neighboring roof. I waited for anger big enough to carry me. What arrived instead was quiet, clicking into place like a lock. When I was 10, Dad called me banker like it was a joke. "Banker, hand me the tape," he'd say while I held the roll. Fixing a cardboard box because he refused to buy storage bins. At 12, I learned the actual jokes were about me. "Max loves chores," Harper would say, and they'd laugh because I didn't argue. It wasn't a cartoon villain household. It was the kind where everything had an explanation if you wanted one. Dad worked construction and said his back hurt. Mom managed scheduling at a clinic and said her nerves were shot. Harper had a lot of pressure, which over the years covered everything from dropping a class to totaling a car. Money talk always found me. When I started busting tables at 15, Mom borrowed $60 from my tip jar for the water bill and texted, "We'll settle up." We never did. The first time Harper needed "books today or else I'll be behind all semester," I sent $175 at 11:47 p.m. The last time it was $380, just until Friday. Friday became next Friday. Then the card randomized my payment date. Then silence. When I asked, she sent a single skull emoji. "And you're seriously keeping score?" Wow. I kept score anyway. Quietly. $20 here, $90 there. Gas money, tires. The emergency dentist, that was actually veneers for Harper's crowded smile. Dad's tools stolen from the site that later appeared in our garage with the price tag still sticking to the plastic. All of it worked because I made it work. I picked up shifts. I rode my bike instead of buying a bus pass. I learned to like oatmeal because it was cheap. And I learned to say, no problem, in the bright tone of someone everyone believes will say yes again. I was the helper. The spare key. The, can you stop by? The rule was simple. If Harper wanted it, it was a priority. If I wanted it, I had to justify it like a grant application. When senior year came, I got into a state college with a partial scholarship. We had a family meeting at the kitchen table. Dad spread out bills like a dealer and said, look at reality. Mom sighed about timing. I offered to commute and keep working nights. Harper, a junior in high school at the time, asked if I could just wait a year because her dance team needed a fundraiser chair, and I always make spreadsheets that don't suck. I deferred. Everyone praised me for being mature. No one mentioned that maturity had a cost. I finished community college while working at the freight yard, then transferred to a state program late with a financial aid package that had more gaps than forms. I filled the gaps, of course I did, with shifts, with loans in my name because Dad's credit was complicated and Mom's was tied up. I graduated without ceremony because Harper's boyfriend's parents were throwing an engagement party that weekend. And it's a whole thing with the invitations. And then Rotterdam happened. A professor handed me a flyer, internship at a shipping company. It wasn't glamorous. It was spreadsheets, arrival windows, and emails to people in 6 time zones. It was also a plane ticket and housing covered if I could front the deposit in the first month, reimbursed later. Fronting was my skill set. I sold my old guitar. I took the ugly tool chest off Craigslist to make a little extra because some guy wanted it delivered. I left the bike in the garage on hooks I paid for. I told Mom the dates. She said, lucky Harper never got an opportunity like that. Harper rolled her eyes and said, Max is a logistics guy. Of course he'll do Europe. I wired the deposit and went. While I was gone, I got a series of texts that felt off. Dad, do you still need all that space in the garage? Me, I have one shelf for my bike. Dad, your stuff is messy. Me, I labeled everything. Mom, we're thinking about renting the extra room, meaning mine, for a bit. Me, I'll be back in July. Mom, we'll talk. We didn't talk. I mailed home 2 postcards. Harper posted 3 beach pictures with captions like, we thrive, and never asked about my time zone. When I called on Sundays, Dad put me on speaker while he rattled dishes so the echo swallowed my words. You sound different, Mom said once. Like you think you're better? I bit my tongue so hard it tasted like pennies. The rent thing escalated in a way that only makes sense if you've lived inside the long game of a family that decides you're a resource. A week before my return flight, Harper texted, need to borrow your car when you land. Just for a week. I asked why. She said, sorority retreat. Sponsors expect presents. I said, the car's registration was due and I didn't have extra for tickets. She sent, oh, you're dramatic. Then a photo of nails I'm guessing were $70. I didn't reply. 3 days later, Dad sent a photo of an empty garage labeled progress, with 3 clapping emojis. I stared at it on my phone while I watched a cargo ship crawl along the horizon like it had all the time in the world. I had all the facts. I just didn't connect them because connecting them meant admitting something ugly. They had made a decision that saved them money, cost me home, and they'd done it without telling me because they counted on the part of me that would figure it out quietly. The taxi meter ticked. The curb got darker. I set my suitcase beside me and gave myself permission to be practical because rage wouldn't get me a bed. I called 3 people. My friend Jordan, who picked up on the first ring and said, you can crash on my couch. My supervisor from the internship who said, if you need a bridge week, we have a spare cot near the office. Not glamorous, but it's safe. And Mr. Patel, who quietly handed me a key to his back apartment above the deli saying, it's empty for 5 days. No charge. Don't argue. I texted Dad once. When did you change the locks? He replied, we gave you notice. I scrolled to one text from 2 weeks ago. We're simplifying. I stared at the screen. Simple. At midnight, sitting on the little steps behind the deli with my suitcase, I opened the Notes app and made a list. I always make lists when the ground tilts. Title, what I can control. 1, a bed for the next week. 2, a P.O. box. 3, remove myself from accounts I pay. 4, pick up my SS card from the drawer if it's still there. 5, stop being a wallet with feelings. In the morning, I'd go back for the rest of my clothes before the trash truck came. I'd walk up at 6 a.m. with a duffel and no apologies. I'd get my documents not because I wanted to see anyone, but because you learn the hard way to secure the little things. I fell asleep to the hum of the deli fridge. I dreamed about ship horns and spreadsheets that balanced themselves. When I woke, my phone had 3 missed calls from Mom and a text from Harper. Can you Venmo me $230 by noon? My tuition portal is glitching. No question mark, no greeting. I stared at that number and thought about the empty hooks in the garage. And the part of me that always flinched first didn't move. The big scene wasn't a wedding or a gala. It was a kitchen. It was Saturday. I'd gone at sunrise, grabbed what I could from the bags, then stood at the door until Dad opened it because he thought I was the new tenant. He blinked. Oh, morning. I said calm. I shifted my duffel higher on my shoulder. I need my documents. Social, passport, the little fireproof folder in the bottom drawer. Then I'll be out of your way. Dad stepped aside like he was granting a favor. You can't stay here, he said preemptively. We have a lease for the room. I know, I said. I saw the sign. Mom appeared, hair in a towel, eyes already narrowed like she could smell a disagreement. We texted you, she said. You texted, we're simplifying, I replied. Because facts were safer than feelings and I'd learned to speak in receipts. The locks were changed. My things were on the curb. That's not simplification. That's eviction. That's dramatic. Mom snapped. Stop calling me dramatic, I said. Still even. It's lazy and it's wrong. We stood in the tiny triangle of kitchen floor where I'd spent a decade scraping plates into the trash and rinsing the stubborn bits while everyone else talked in the living room. Harper wandered in wearing one of my old sweatshirts like a punchline. Max, she said sweet. Are you seriously mad? You were gone for months. I told you my dates, I said. She pushed hair behind her ear. You always make everything a thing. Dad gestured toward the hallway. Get your papers, he said tired. We have a showing at noon. That word showing crackled in the air like a bad wire. I went to my old room. The posters I'd left taped up were gone. The tape shadows remained like outlines of a body at a crime scene. The bed was stripped. In the corner, a new cheap dresser sat with 2 drawers slightly off their tracks. On the closet rod, 3 plastic hangers waited like a dare. I knelt by the bottom drawer, pulled it out, reached for the fireproof folder and found an empty space. I checked the second spot I'd used, the back of the 3rd shelf because Dad never looks past the front row. Empty. My stomach did that slow elevator drop. I stood and found Mom at the doorway, arms crossed. What are you looking for? She asked, voice bored. Documents, I said. The folder, my passport, birth certificate. You know, the legal proof that I exist. Oh, she said. Your dad cleaned. He probably put it in the garage. The garage is empty, I said. Her mouth did a sympathetic twist that always meant I'm not sorry. Check the hall closet, she said. I did. A stack of boxes labeled Kit, Bath, and H for Harper. None labeled Max. On the top shelf, my toolbox sat open, half the sockets missing. I took a breath that felt like it had edges. Found my toolbox, I said. Which is wild because it was in the way last month. Dad shrugged. We used a few things. I held up the empty socket strip like a visual aid. A few. Stop. Mom hissed, glancing at the clock. Tenants don't like drama. Something in me clicked. Not a spark. More like a seatbelt locking. No, I said, calm enough that all 3 of them looked at me. You don't get to toss me, keep my tools, list my room on a website, and then call me dramatic because I asked for my passport. We're going to fix 3 things right now. 1, I'm leaving with my documents. 2, you're done asking me for money. 3, my name comes off every bill I've ever been roped into. Phone plan, car insurance, utilities with my social as the guarantor, all of it. Today. Dad snorted. You can't just. I can, I said. I already did the P.O. box. The rest is paperwork. Harper rolled her eyes. You really think you're above family now? This isn't about revenge, I said, voice steady enough to surprise even myself. This is about closure. I'm not your safety net. I'm not your collateral. I'm your son. And you don't treat sons like storage. Silence. Real silence. Not the kind where someone is prepping a speech. The refrigerator hummed like it wanted to be a white noise machine. Mom broke first. You owe us, she said quietly, like a last card down on the table. We raised you. I nodded once and I worked and I paid and I did my share and then some. I'm done being punished because I'm dependable. Dad's jaw tensed. If you walk out like this, don't come back asking for help. I never asked, I said. But you keep asking me. I found the folder in the laundry room of all places, on top of a dryer sheet box, like a joke only a clerk at the DMV would enjoy. I slid the passport and certificates into my duffel. On the way out, I unplugged the little Wi-Fi mesh node I had bought and installed and set it on the counter. This is mine, I said. The main router too. That's petty? Harper said. No, I said, finally letting a small smile out. That's accurate bookkeeping. Dad took a step toward me. Don't you dare call the police, I said. And tell them you changed the locks on your kid and put his clothes on the curb. See how that story sounds when it's not in your kitchen. We stared at each other for a long beat. He stopped moving. He wasn't used to me not blinking first. I'll be mailing you something next week, I said, slinging the strap across my chest. Read it. And then don't text me again unless it's about a death or a medical crisis. I mean it, Max. Mom said, voice going syrupy. Don't do this. I already did, I said and walked out, down the same path I'd mowed every July since I was 15, past the empty garage, past the cheap sign in the window, into the heat that felt like a clean slap. On the sidewalk, my phone buzzed with a new message from Dad. You're an adult. Figure it out. I looked at it, typed my reply and sent it without shaking. Check your mailbox next week. Then I blocked them. The envelope I sent wasn't a grenade. It was a boundary. 12 pages, simple words, printed at the library because Jordan's printer was out of ink. The cover letter said, this is not revenge. This is notice. Inside, I listed every account bearing my name that touched theirs. Cell plan, termination date, confirmation number. Car insurance, removed 2 drivers from my policy, confirmation number. Electric bill at the house. My social removed as guarantor. Starting 1st of the month, confirmation number. Streaming platforms, shared logins, random monthly charges that quietly appeared and never got discussed. Done. I included a ledger because I'm me. Not to demand repayment, but to show the math of my life. 5 years of loans with dates and amounts. $9,842 total. At the bottom I wrote, I'm not collecting. I'm closing the account. I also enclosed a spare house key, a photocopy of the Wi-Fi receipt, and a notarized letter stating I would no longer authorize the use of my name, credit, or income on any application. Any attempt will be considered identity misuse. I paid for certified mail. I kept the little green slips like trophies. Jordan and his boyfriend Louis gave me their couch for 3 nights and their spare room for 2 weeks after their roommate moved out unexpectedly. You can stay as long as you need, Jordan said, waving a spatula at me while trying not to burn quesadillas. Also, dude, that was the calmest nuclear boundary I've ever seen. I laughed for real that night for the first time in days. Day by day, I handled the boring miracles. A P.O. box key on my keychain, a new bank account, no joint users, no shortcuts. I checked my credit, found 2 inquiries from a car lot I'd never visited. I disputed them with the quiet, stubborn energy that had kept me alive in that house. I took an entry-level operations job at a local shipping firm, the same industry as Rotterdam, but with better coffee and a boss who remembered birthdays with cupcakes and names spelled correctly. At 6:05 p.m. on the 3rd Thursday, I got the delivery confirmation signed by M. The next morning, I woke up to 14 missed calls. By noon, 39. The last voicemail was just breathing, then Dad saying, "Call me." No, please. No, son. Just a tone I recognized from overdue notices. At 3:11 p.m., a number I didn't know lit my phone. It was the property manager. "Is this Max?" she asked. "I'm calling because your parents listed you as emergency contact. There was an issue with rent transfer this month and we can't reach them." "I'm not an emergency contact," I said steady. "Please remove my number. Also, they received notice 19 months ago that my name is not connected to the account." She paused. "I see that letter attached actually. Paperwork. Bless it." I hung up, sat with my breathing and let the urge to fix things crest and break. The urge was loud. It sounded like Mom's crying, like Harper's, "You're being ridiculous," like Dad's, "Be a man." It sounded like the house, like the garage, like the empty hooks. Then it quieted. At 5:40 p.m. I did a small ordinary thing. I made pasta and called Jordan to ask if he wanted half. "Always," he said. "Also, your sister just DM'd Louis. She asked if we could talk sense into you." He didn't reply. He blocked her. He's getting good at boundaries. "Tell him I'm proud." "Already did," Jordan said. "And hey, proud of you too." I smiled into my bowl of food that tasted like normal. Pride is a weird muscle. It aches when you start using it. 2 months after the 187 missed calls, a letter came to my P.O. box with my last name in Mom's handwriting. Inside were 2 lines, "We didn't think you meant it. I'm not going to lie and say everything is fixed. It isn't. Dad still thinks respect should come with fear. Mom still talks in circles when she wants something. Mia still posts boss babe quotes and forgets to pay taxes. They're themselves on myself. The difference is I finally let that be true without paying for it. What changed in me isn't anger. It's boundaries. I say no without a speech. I say yes when it's clean. If Dad asks for advice, I give it. If he asks for money, I don't. If Mia wants me to co-sign anything, I won't. If Mom starts the "we did everything" script, I end the call. Not with cruelty. With practice. This isn't about revenge, I told Dad that night, and it still isn't. It's about closure. Closure is boring from the outside. It's receipts in a folder, a calendar reminder to reconcile on Thursdays, a list on the fridge that says, sleep, water, laundry, run. It's making a sandwich and eating it slowly. It's understanding that family is not a password that unlocks your bank account. It's recognizing that love without respect is just need wearing your face. A week ago, Dad texted a photo of a rental sign in front of a smaller place. "Might apply," he wrote. No exclamation points, no guilt, just a thing he was doing. I told him the application fee was sometimes negotiable. He said, "Okay." That was it. It felt bigger than it looked. The moral is simple because simple is all I can maintain. You don't owe anyone your ruin. You can love people and still refuse to finance the disrespect they serve you with a smile. I'm the same man I was before. Gas station owner, early mornings, coffee that's too strong. The difference is I'm not a background character paying for the scene. I'm in it. I'm speaking. And when someone laughs at a line that cuts me, I don't pick up the plates anymore. I pick up my keys. I go home. I build a life that fits. It's strange how quiet peace is. No one tells you that. You imagine it'll feel like fireworks or loud music or some grand celebration. But for me, peace sounded like no one asking me for money. No one calling me selfish. No one sending long texts with, "Since you're the only one doing well." Just silence. Glorious. Uninterrupted silence. 3 months have passed since the night I blew everything up. 3 months since the investigation started, since my family stared at me in shock as agents walked through their front door, and reality finally punched through years of delusion. They say you can't choose your family. Maybe that's true. But you can choose how much of yourself you're willing to lose trying to keep them happy. And I was done losing. The fallout came fast. Mia and Zach tried damage control. First, a lawyer emailed my attorney offering to privately resolve the situation. No apology. No ownership. Just damage control. I told my lawyer, let it burn. A week later, Mom sent a letter. 10 pages. Her handwriting still neat, but trembling in parts. She wrote about how things got out of hand, how they never meant to hurt me, how she hoped I could see the bigger picture. "We just assumed you'd always be there," she wrote. "That's what good sons do." That line stuck with me because it said everything. Not "we were wrong." Not "you didn't deserve that." Just "you were supposed to stay quiet and keep giving." I didn't write back. I didn't call. And for the first time in my life, I didn't feel guilty about it. I moved. New apartment. New state. No more accidental drop-ins from relatives. No more surprise visits from Mia. I even changed my number. My boss, noticing how focused I'd become, offered me a promotion. I took it. It's funny how much better you perform at work when you're not secretly juggling your sister's car payments and your mom's overdue utility bills behind the scenes. I sleep better now. I eat better. I breathe better. Because I'm no longer carrying 4 people on my back who refuse to say thank you. Then one morning a letter showed up. No return address. Inside, a check for $1,200 and a handwritten note. I left him. "You were right. I was scared. But watching what you did, it gave me the courage to walk away too. This is for everything you paid for. Ellie. For the tablet. The rent. The clothes. I know Zach never thanked you. But I am. Thank you for being the example I needed. Kelly." I read it twice. Then I cried. Not out of sadness. Not out of pain. But because for the first time, someone in that family saw me. Not as a wallet. Not as a scapegoat. But as a person. People ask me sometimes, "Do you regret it?" And the answer is simple, no. I regret waiting so long. I regret every sleepless night, every canceled vacation, every tight budget I lived under while they dined out, shopped, and posted about grateful family vibes on Instagram. I regret the way I made myself small so they could feel big. I regret all the times I stayed silent when I should have said, "You're crossing a line." But do I regret standing up? Burning it down? Never. My therapist once asked me, "Why did it take you so long to say no?" And I said, "Because I thought that saying no meant I didn't love them." She nodded. Saying no is how you teach people to love you back. I've never forgotten that. A few days ago, I ran into someone from high school. She said, "Hey, I saw what happened with your family. That's wild." I expected judgment or pity. But instead, she smiled and added, "Good for you. Most people never get out." I thanked her. Then I walked away feeling a little taller. Mia and Zach are still under investigation. Last I heard, Zach lost his job. Mia's bank account was frozen. Mom's trying to refinance the house, and Dad's apparently blaming outside influence for tearing the family apart. They still don't get it. I didn't tear anything apart. I just stopped pretending the pieces were still whole. Sometimes I get flashbacks of that night. The table. Mia laughing as I checked my account. Zach grinning like it was a joke. Mom brushing it off. "You don't need that money," she said. And now they know the truth. That money wasn't just money. It was my life, my time, my health, my boundaries. And they crossed them for years like it meant nothing. Now they pay the price. I don't celebrate their downfall, but I celebrate myself for surviving it. For walking away. For not going back even when the silence felt lonely. Even when the guilt whispered in my ear like it used to. Because that silence? It's freedom. The final phone call came on a Thursday afternoon right before pushback. Mom. I let it go to voicemail. We took off. We climbed through a thin layer and leveled into bright air. 2 hours later on taxi and I listened. Her voice was small. "Albert, your brother needs money for a retainer. He's in trouble. Just this once." For me. I closed my eyes. The old script tried to play for me. Just this once. I deleted the message. That night I wrote down what I'd learned. Not for a blog, not for a post, just for me. It was short. Love doesn't mean access. Boundaries are not cruelty. I'm not cold. I'm done burning. I put the paper in the same folder as the ledger copy. I cooked dinner. I washed the pan. I set my alarm for a reasonable hour and turned my phone face down. A week later, my sister and I met at the park. We sat by the big maple. Not grandma's, but close enough in spirit. She said, "They're saying you don't care about family." I said, "I care about truth." She nodded. "Me too." She took a deep breath. "I'm moving out. I got a cheap place with a friend. I'm going to pay my own bills." I smiled. "You'll be okay." She grinned. "I know." On my next Anchorage run, I carried grandma's ring in a small velvet box in my flight bag. Not because I was ready to use it. Because keeping it with me felt right. The airplane hummed. The cabin lights were low. I watched the wing carve the air and thought about how grandma wrote everything down and loved us anyway. How she said kindness needs clarity. I don't check the family chat anymore. They still talk. They still try to rearrange the story around their comfort. They still call me names when I take away a convenience they confused for love. That's fine. I'm not their audience anymore. I'm the guy who lifts a heavy thing into the sky and brings it down safe. I'm the one who sends a transfer when it's needed, not when it's demanded. I'm the son who will show up for truth even when it's inconvenient, even when it's lonely for a while. People ask if I feel guilty. I say, I feel free. Then I add, I feel honest. They look surprised like freedom and honesty are the same word. Maybe they are. Some nights I still wake up at 3 a.m. with old guilt jangling in my chest. The difference is what I do next. I pour water. I stand at my window. I breathe. I say out loud, I'm not cold. Then I go back to bed. The morning after one of those nights, I found an envelope under my apartment door. No return address. Inside was a photo of Grandma sitting at her kitchen table, the ledger open, a caramel halfway unwrapped. My sister had slipped it there on her way to work. On the back she'd written clear and kind. I put the photo on my fridge. It doesn't glow like a notification. It doesn't argue. It just sits there reminding me of the rule that finally saved me. Keep score to know when to stop, then stop. What? So here's the moral. Simple and clean. I won't let anyone, not even family, spend me past empty. I won't hand over my name to buy their comfort. I'll choose quiet love over loud debt. That's my place. Dean's story is a powerful testament to the strength found in setting boundaries. Have you ever had to draw a line in the sand with family members who constantly took advantage of you? What did that journey look like for you? Share your experiences and insights in the comments below. I'd really appreciate hearing your perspective.